If you're preparing to process chickens for the first time, I know you've probably watched a ton of YouTube videos, but you haven't seen one like this. Also, I finally got a haircut.
That's a big bird.
Those were a few shots from my last video where I showed you what it was like processing chickens for the first time. We did some things really well, but we didn't hold back on any of the mistakes either.
People in the comments are going to be ruthless.
What makes this video different is that it's not just another how-to video. In this video, I'm going to tell you what it actually felt like to process chickens for the first time. If you get to the end of this video and you agree you haven't seen one quite like this before, give me a thumbs up. If you have seen one like this before, then post a link to it in the comments. I truly would love to see somebody else's perspective. Now, I'm sure the first thing that came to mind for many of you is, oh, he's gonna talk about what it was like to take the chicken, put it in the cone, get the knife, and, well, do what has to be done. We'll get there, but you have to understand a few other aspects of it first. We spent weeks, if not months, planning, comparing costs. Ryan had to build a brooder, and all that was just to get the chicks there. Then there was the 8 weeks, which for us turned into 13 weeks of caring for them. All of this so that we could end up with this. But we weren't there yet. There was still one last thing that had to happen for us to get there. We had to actually process them. Why am I bringing this up? Because it's important to understand that this is the final step in what we had spent months working and planning towards. Not to mention the fact that we had already postponed this day 3 or 4 times because the chickens just weren't putting on weight. By the way, in case you're wondering what I'm doing out here, we had some volunteer tomato plants spring up, so I'm putting some manure around them and I'll put straw on top to try to encourage them and see if we can get them going. If you've processed chickens before, you generally know what's gonna happen, right? But if you've never done it before, like us, it's probably gonna be a little bit of stress involved, maybe even some anxiety. You might be asking questions like, can we actually do this? What if I forgot something and we get started and we can't finish because I forgot the thing? Or what if these birds end up being diseased and we can't even use them? You're probably gonna feel a little stress. I definitely did, and I guarantee you Ryan did too. I had watched a ton of videos and read a ton of information, so I knew that I could do it, but there was still that doubt because I hadn't ever done it. Setting everything up took a while. I should have weeded this first. We wanted to make sure that everything would flow efficiently once we got started. Here are our dispatch cones. Right next to our scalder, we've got the plucker. From the plucker here, they'll go into this ice bath. Then once they come out of there, they're gonna go on our table. Also, we've got our buckets underneath, got our knives ready to go. We've got a hose hanging out right there on standby. Then it was time to do it. Once the scalding water was finally up to temperature and we were ready to start, there was a little hesitation. I didn't get this on film, but we decided to start by reading a poem by Wendell Berry called For the Hog Killing. This was really a half-kidding recommendation from my sister-in-law, but it just seemed to fit, so we did it. Check out the link below for a really good reading of that poem. It's only like a minute long. I often don't really understand poetry, but there were a couple lines in that particular poem that really resonated with me. Let this day begin again, the change of hogs into people, not the other way around. For today we celebrate again our lives wedding with the world. Obviously we're dealing with chickens instead of hogs, but you get the point. At the end of the day, that's what we were there to do. We were making good on this promise we made to ourselves 5 or 6 months ago when we decided to do this. We're taking control of our food. In a small way, we're also taking care of our families. So after reading that poem, said a prayer, and then we got started. I thought the hose reached all the way back here.
All right, Daniel, this is where we're learning.
After Ryan did the first one, it was just silent. There was a little tension hanging in the air. And then he did the second one.
I'm gonna go ahead and go get another one.
Yeah. In the other video, there's a moment right after that where I made a little quip about not doing this on your carport. That was just enough to break the tension. So don't do this on your carport if you don't want it stained with blood. Then we were able to just breathe a sigh of relief. The hardest part, the part that we were dreading, was done. Did things go perfectly after that? No, not even close.
Are there pieces of meat coming off?
Oh no. First one, unmitigated disaster. But it didn't really matter because we had just proved to ourselves that we could do it. Now we just had to take a deep breath and keep moving forward. Second one actually went pretty well. Gotta get a longer hose. At the end of the day, we were exhausted. And not just because it was a long day, which it was. We were out of daylight, but here's the finished product. This was the culmination of all of that planning, work, and expectations. So when you go to process chickens for the first time, don't sell the experience short. You don't have to be a seasoned pro. It might become routine at some point in the future with more experience, but it's not now, and that's okay.